Hi, I'm Troy from Studio 33 Guitar. Welcome to the brand new beginner series. This is part number 2, where we talk more about strumming patterns and how to add in the upstroke. In the previous lesson, we were looking at this E chord and this A chord, and we were taking turns strumming, playing 4 down strums for each chord and then switching to the next chord. Now we're going to look at how to add upstrokes to your strum to make your changes a little bit smoother, to make the chords sound a little bit smoother and a little more musical and a little less rough and rigid. Now, the most important part about upstrokes is knowing how to play them. And the main thing that you want to be concerned about when playing an upstroke is that you're only going to be catching the top 2, maybe 3 strings. You're not going to be strumming all the way through, all 6 strings like you would on a down strum. You're only going to be getting the top highest sounding strings. And you're also going to be giving it a little bit more of a wrist motion instead of a full arm movement. You are going to be just using the pick to kind of grab those 2 higher strings and kind of give it a little bit of a flick out. So that's going to look and sound like this. So now that you know how to do an upstroke, you need to learn when to do them. Now, there's no specific rules about this, but there are some guidelines that will help you to fit those upstrokes in. So earlier we were talking about how we count in music. We count in groups of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when we do that, we're counting what's called quarter notes because we're dividing this bar of music into 4 quarters. Now we're going to divide it further into eighths. And so if we were to count eighth notes, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the important part here is that upstrokes generally will fit best on the ands. So we're going to start really simply, and we're going to play an upstroke on the and after 4. So that's going to sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Once you're comfortable being able to do that on that E chord, now we're going to try switching to that A chord and back to the E. And we're going to put those upstrokes on the and after 4 each time. That'll look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and. The other great thing about upstrokes is that it really helps to smooth out our chord changes. Because we're only playing those top couple of strings, we can start moving our fingers off that first chord to the next chord while those high strings are ringing out. So it covers up a little bit as you make that change. I'll demonstrate that slowly for you now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. You can see that my hand is coming up, my fingers are coming off that chord as I'm playing that upstroke. And then they get into position on that next chord just in time for me to hit another down strum. I'm going to try and exaggerate the movement of my hand so you can see exactly when that's happening on the upstroke. But like I said earlier, you want to make sure when you're changing chords, you try and do as little movement as possible. But for the sake of demonstrating it, I'm going to try and exaggerate this movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So again, because we're only playing those high strings and they're the same notes for both of those chords, they can be ringing out while you're making the change with your fingers. And so that really helps to smooth out your chord changes. So now we're going to add in another upstroke on the and after 2. And that'll sound like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and as you can see, adding in those upstrokes does help to make us sound a little bit more musical. Now we're going to make a few more changes to really get a nice strumming pattern. And this strumming pattern is probably the most popular strumming pattern that guitar players use, and it's very useful for many different songs. You can usually make it fit for most songs. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the down strum on beat number 3, but we're going to keep that upstroke after 2 and after 4. So that's going to look like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So even though we're skipping beat number 3, our arm is still moving. So we're still coming down on 3, but we're just not letting the pick hit the strings. So it's important to keep that motion still going. Now we want to try that with the 2 chords. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So we're almost there. The next thing we're going to do is add in one more upstroke before 4. So we're still leaving out beat number 3, but we're going to add in one more upstroke on the and right before 4. That might sound confusing, but that's going to sound like this. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. And once we get that up to speed, it would sound like this. So that is an extremely useful and very popular strumming pattern. So to combine the 2 chords together with that strumming pattern, they would sound like this. Now counting that out and skipping the 3, it becomes quite confusing to do. So another way that you can think about this strumming pattern is simply down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. And you'll hear it referred to that way. If you're watching other videos or talking to other guitar players, they will talk about that strumming pattern in that way. Once you practice it enough, it'll just become natural. You won't have to think about the counting or down, up. You'll just be able to play it and you'll be able to feel it and it'll sound great. So that'll be it for today's lesson. Keep practicing that strum and tune in for the next part of this series where we'll be talking about more strumming patterns that you can use.